What's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Every Day is a Saturday with your host, me, myself, and I, Brian Roof. Hey guys, it is another day and we are on another episode. We are moving along quite quickly here, already on episode 4. And as I'm doing these episodes, I every time I'm thinking to myself, there's just no way anybody can get worse than the next. But this dude right here, Jeffrey Dahmer. That's who we're going to be talking about here on episode 4. He is quite a nasty guy, crazy. There's a lot of different documentaries on him. There's a Netflix docuseries. So he's kind of well known, and he probably one of the probably most vocal serial killers that there's been. Like, he's talked a lot. He's had a lot of interviews, and discussed a lot of what he's gone through and what he's done. But let's go ahead and dive down and get to know Jeffrey Dahmer and how he grew up. And he was in the army, um, and kind of see what made him kind of tick. You know how it is. We kind of go through the story. We go through their childhood, go through their adult life, and then if they had any military career, kind of a little bit of what they did in the military, and then what led up to what they're doing. Because for me, I don't know. Whenever I'm doing this, I definitely like to question it and ask myself, what would lead up to someone wanting to go and take someone else's life from them? So it's kind of trying to break into some of these guys' head and see what the heck their childhoods or their way of their bringing, or was it just like their personalities in general. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about Jeffrey Dahmer. So Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born May 21st, 1960. um, he was also known as a Milwaukee cannibal, or the Milwaukee Monster. uh, was an American serial killer and sex offender who killed and dismembered 17 males between 1978 and 1991. Many of his later murders involved necrophilia, cannibalism, and the permanent preservation of body parts, typically all or part of the skeleton. So, although he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizophrenic personality disorder, and psychotic disorder, Dahmer was found to be legally sane at his trial. He was convicted of 15 of the 16 homicides he had committed in Wisconsin and was sentenced to 15 terms of life imprisonment on February 7th, 1992. Dahmer was later sentenced to a 16th term of life imprisonment for additional homicide committed in Ohio in 1978. On November 28th, 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by Christopher Scarver, a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive into his younger years and see kind of how Dahmer grew up. We kind of did something a little different on here this time, guys. So tell me what you think. I kind of did a little bit of some video editing, added in pictures and kind of narrated and stuff. So just trying to make it different, and see what you guys think. Kind of if you guys are interested in ever shoot me, suggestions or anything like that. Maybe there's someone out there you want to hear about. Give me an email. Every day is a Saturday. Every day is a Saturday. 365 at yahoo.com. Every day is a Saturday. 365 at yahoo.com. All right. So anyhow, we're going to go ahead and get right into this. We're going to go through his childhood and listen about how Dahmer grew up. Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the first of 2 sons to Lionel Dahmer, a Marquette University chemistry student and later a research chemist, and Joyce Dahmer, a teletype machine instructor. Some sources report Dahmer was deprived of attention as an infant. Other sources, however, suggest that Dahmer was generally doted upon as an infant and toddler by both parents, although his mother was known to be tense, greedy, or both attention and pity, and argumentative with her husband and their neighbors. As Dahmer entered first grade, Lionel's study kept him away from home much of the time. When Dahmer's father was at home, his wife, who was a hypochondriac who suffered from depression, demanded constant attention and spent an increasing amount of time in bed. On one occasion, she attempted suicide using Equinil. Consequently, neither parent devoted much time to their son, who later recollected that from an early age he felt unsure of the solidity of his family, recalling extreme tension and numerous arguments between his parents during his early years. Jeffrey Dahmer had been an energetic and happy child, but became notably subdued after a double hernia surgery shortly before his fourth birthday. At an elementary school, Dahmer was regarded as quiet and timid. One teacher recollected she detected early signs of abandonment due to the father's absence and mother's illnesses, the symptoms of which increased when she became pregnant with her second child. In elementary school, Dahmer had a small number of friends. From an early age, Dahmer manifested an interest in dead animals. His fascination with dead animals may have begun when, at the age of 4, he saw his father removing animal bones from beneath the family home. He would go around the house and search for additional bones and explore the bodies of live animals to discover where their bones were located. All right. Well, as you can tell from his childhood, it sounded like a lot. He probably felt a little bit of a sense of abandonment from his father being gone away from the home, having to work. It also does sound like though whenever the father was home, there was a lot of tension going on in the home, and the father and the mother probably weren't getting along. She sounds like she was very mentally unstable, and being that his father Lionel was gone a lot of the time, it left the mother there to take care of Dahmer and his brothers. So, you know, and from some of the reports, you can tell that there was a noticeable thing that he looked like he probably was getting neglected. He had shown signs of neglection, and that he was, kind of a loner and kind of kept to himself. Had a little bit of a fascination with dissecting animals at a very young age, and took into that, which later plays into some of his heinous crimes. So let's go keep going a little bit further down. We'll go ahead and check out how his high school years were. Jeffrey Dahmer's freshman year at Revere High School, Dahmer was known as an outcast. By age 14, he had begun drinking beer and hard alcohol in daylight hours, frequently concealing his liquor inside his jacket he wore to school. When he reached puberty, Dahmer discovered he was gay. He did not tell his parents in his early teens. He had a brief relationship with another teenage boy, although they never had intercourse. By Dahmer's admission, he began fantasizing about dominating and controlling a completely submissive male partner in his early to mid-teens, and his masturbated fantasies gradually evolved to his focusing on chest and torsos. His fantasies gradually became intertwined with dissection. When he was about 16, Dahmer conceived a fantasy of rendering unconscious a particular male jogger he found attractive. On one occasion, Dahmer concealed himself in bushes with a baseball bat to lie in wait for this man. However, the jogger did not pass by on that particular day. Dahmer later admitted this was the first attempt to attack and render an individual submissive to him. Dahmer was seen by his high school peers as class clown who often staged pranks, which became known as doing a Dahmer. These included bleeding and simulating epileptic seizures and cerebral palsy at school and local stores. Occasionally, Dahmer would perform these antics for money to purchase alcohol. By 1977, Dahmer's grades really started to decline. His parents decided to get him a private tutor. And that same exact year, his parents were really starting to have marital issues. So to save it, they started doing counseling. Well, during the counseling session, Dahmer's father found out that Dahmer's mother had cheated on him, and that led to his parents getting a nasty divorce, and it became really ugly. All right. So as we can see that the marriage, as he gets older, ends up playing its course. Um, they try to go to get counseling, one last ditch effort to reconcile the marriage. And obviously, through the counseling, they found out that Dahmer's mother was having an affair. So that it ultimately led to, the split. And obviously the dynamics of the home weren't really good anyway. So um, it was kind of one of those things that was going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And unfortunately, there was probably a lot of damage that had occurred all in between that time. And I mean, Dahmer pretty much grew up with, this whole thing, and it didn't really go away for him for a long time. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and keep on down his path and listen into the time when he commits his first murder. Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder in 1978, 3 weeks after his graduation, on June 18th. Dahmer picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Mark Hicks, who was almost 19. Dahmer lured Hicks into his house on the pretext of drinking. Hicks, who had been hitchhiking to a rock concert at Chippewa Lake Park, Ohio, agreed to accompany Dahmer to his house upon the promise of a few beers with Dahmer, as he had the house to himself. According to Dahmer, the sight of the bare-chested Hicks standing at the roadside stirred his sexual feelings. Although when Hicks began talking about girls, he knew any sexual passes he made would be rebuffed. After several hours of talking, drinking, and listening to music, Hicks wanted to leave, and Dahmer didn't want him to go. Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks with a 10-pound dumbbell. He later stated he struck Hicks twice from behind with the dumbbell as Hicks sat upon a chair. When Hicks fell unconscious, Dahmer strangled him to death with the bar of the dumbbell, then stripped the clothes from Hicks' body before exploring his chest with his hands, then masturbating as he stood above the corpse. Hours later, Dahmer dragged the body to the basement. The following day, Dahmer dissected Hicks' body in his basement. He later buried the remains in a shallow grave in his backyard. Several weeks later, he unearthed the remains and pared the flesh from the bones. He dissolved the flesh in acid before flushing the solution down the toilet. He crushed the bones with a sledgehammer and scattered them in the woodland behind the family home. Hicks' necklace and the knife used to dismember him were thrown from the West Bath Road Bridge into the Coyote River. I mean, you could just tell that he is a sick son of a gun, man. And everything he did had to be very well thought out. And he had to have done some kind of research in his days to kind of know what to do and how to try to preserve bodies. But yeah, this dude, and then here he goes. Oh, I didn't, intend to kill the guy. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that he's always had that urge in his body, but he finally acted upon it, took an opportunity. So it's unreal. And he didn't stop there, obviously. He did stop for a little bit of some time, but once he would kill again, he really got himself going. But let's kind of go into his college years and hear a little bit more about how he grew up in his early adult life. 6 weeks after the murder of Hicks, Dahmer's father and his fiancee returned to his home, where they discovered Dahmer living alone. That August, Dahmer enrolled at OSU, Ohio State University, hoping to major in business. Dahmer's sole term at OSU was completely unproductive, largely because of his persistent alcohol abuse. He received failing grades in Introduction to Anthropology, Classical Civilization, and Administrative Science. The only course Dahmer was successful at was riflery, having received a B- grade. His overall GPA was a 0.45 out of 4.0. On one occasion, Lionel, his father, paid a surprise visit to his son, only to find his room strewn with empty liquor bottles, despite his father having paid in advance for the second term. Dahmer dropped out of OSU just 3 months after. In January of 1979, Dahmer's father urged him to join the United States Army, so he went ahead and joined. He went to basic training at Fort McClellan in Anniston, Alabama, before training as a medical specialist at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas, He was occasionally reprimanded for intoxication while stationed at Fort Sam Houston. On one occasion, an instance of insubordination resulted in his entire platoon being punished, earning Dahmer a severe beating from his fellow recruits. Owing to Dahmer's alcohol abuse, his performance deteriorated, and in March of 1981, he was deemed unsuitable for military service and was later discharged from the Army. He received an honorable discharge as his superiors did not believe that any problems Dahmer had in the Army would apply to his civilian life. All right, so as you can see, he was definitely no scholar. I think a lot of it probably was due to his obviously was a drinker. He loved alcohol. So I don't think that he was able to probably study and do all that stuff when you get into college a lot harder. His grades were miserable. Dude didn't even have like a .50 GPA. So he definitely was struggling. And as you can hear through the video, he the one thing he did excel at was riflery. So he, decided to join the Army. That didn't really clean him up in terms of making him sober. You know, it's not going to. You're going to be around that kind of stuff. When you join the military, a lot of times it's kind of like going into college, except it's a little bit more stricter and a little bit more rules, but there is still drinking and all that stuff going on there. But, you know, uh, he obviously was able to get himself through the Army. Army was kind of just like, hey, we want to get rid of him. Gave him an honorable discharge, got to get him out. So now let's go ahead and we're gonna start getting into more of when he got out, and then he started acting on his urges and his his fantasies that he had in his head. Let's go ahead and start listening to some of what got him going. On November 20th, 1987, Dahmer, at the time residing with his grandmother in West Ellis, encountered a 25-year-old man from Antigonish, Michigan, named Stephen Tuomi, at a bar and persuaded him to return to the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee, where Dahmer had rented a room for the evening. According to Dahmer, he had no intentions of killing Tuomi, but intended to simply drug him and lie beside him as he explored his body. The following morning, Dahmer awoke to find Tuomi lying beneath him on the bed, his chest crushed in and black and blue with bruises. Blood was seeping from the corner of his mouth, and Dahmer's fist, one forearm, were extensively bruised. Dahmer later said he had no memory of killing Tuomi, and that he could not believe that it had happened. Dahmer purchased a large suitcase in which he had transported Tuomi's body to his grandmother's residence. 1 week later, he severed the head, arms, and legs, then filleted the bones from the body before cutting the flesh into pieces small enough to handle. Dahmer placed the flesh inside plastic garbage bags. He wrapped the bones inside a sheet and pounded them into splinters with a sledgehammer. The dismemberment process took Dahmer approximately 2 hours. He disposed of all of Tuomi's remains, excluding the head, in the trash. For 2 weeks following Tuomi's killing, Dahmer retained Tuomi's head wrapped in a blanket after 2 weeks. Dahmer boiled the head in a mixture of Solex, an alkali-based industrial detergent, and bleach in an effort to retain the skull, which he then used as a stimulus for masturbation. Eventually, the skull became too brittle by this bleaching process, so Dahmer pulverized and disposed of it. So, as you can see, he had a fascination with trying to preserve his victims. He started dissecting them. He started trying to preserve their skulls. It was said, though, according to Dahmer, Tuomi's murder was a pivotal incident which did not try to control his compulsions. He began to actively seek victims, most of whom he encountered in or around gay bars, and would typically lure them in to his grandmother's home. He would drug his victim with tranquilizum or tempism before or shortly after engaging in sexual activity with them. Once his victim was unconscious, he strangled them to death. So after he killed Steve, he really started getting himself into acting on his killing sprees and didn't waste no time. So we're going to kind of talk about um all his killings that he ended up doing. So his first person that he killed was Stephen Hicks, who was 18 years old. Then after that was Steve Tunami, who was 25. Then January 16th, 1988, James Edward Doxtator, 14. March 24th, 1988, Richard Guerrero, 22. And March 25th, 1989, Anthony Lee Sears, who was 24. 1990 of May 20th, Raymond Lamont Smith, who was 32. June 14th, 1990, Edward Warren Smith. And then September 2nd, 1990, Ernest Marquez Miller, who was 22. September 24th, 1990, David Courtney Thomas, 22. February 18th, 1991, Curtis Dorrell Strotter, 17. April 7th, 1991, Errol Lindsay, 19. May 24th, 1991, Tony Anthony Hughes, 31. May 27th, 1991, Knark Sinafon, sorry about that. That's a hard name. 14 was that age of that person. June 30th, Matt Cleveland Turner, who was 20. July 5th, 1991, Jeremiah Benjamin Weinberger, 23. Then July 15th, 10 days later, Oliver Joseph Lacey, who was 24. 4 days later, Joseph Arthur Braidhoft, 25. So, I mean, my gosh, he really started going on a killing spree and didn't waste any time whatsoever. We're talking not even giving some of these bodies a week, and he was already on it, and he really went quickly and fast. So, I'm going to try to find it right now, but there was a time when Dahmer had got caught up and got himself in a little bit of some trouble and was going through some litigation. And while he was actually going through trial, he killed somebody during the trial. So this guy honestly didn't care. Once he started going, it didn't seem like there was much going to stop him until he did get himself caught. So what ultimately led to his capture was a gentleman by the name of Tracy Edwards. We're going to go ahead and check out that video from Tracy Edwards taking the stand and get the opportunity to listen to a little bit of what Tracy Edwards experienced. We're not going to probably go through the whole video. It is a lengthy video. If you ever would like to go check it out, just go over and check it out on YouTube and put in Tracy Edwards takes the stand, and you'll definitely be able to watch the entire case there. But for now, we're going to go ahead and watch a little bit of it right here.
Please be seated. And sir, would you tell us your name and spell your last name for us?
Tracy Edwards, Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, you're going to ask you to speak up very loudly into the microphone. I would like to know, in what state do you reside at the present time?
Louisiana.
And how old are you, sir?
32.
32? And you are single?
Yes.
You were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on July the 22nd, 1991?
Yes.
And at or about that time, on that late afternoon, did you have occasion to see a person that you knew at that time or subsequently learned was a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Dahmer you're speaking about is the defendant in this case to my right, correct?
Yes.
And that I made a record, I showed the identification.
Sir, would you indicate where Mr. Dahmer is seated in the courtroom?
It's over there.
Right in the middle between my two associates?
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's right.
Okay.
Record should reflect the defendant's been identified.
Now, Mr. Edwards, you and I met.
All right, first and foremost, if you guys can't really see that he just looks pissed, honestly. I mean, he doesn't even want to look at Dahmer. Uh, I don't blame him, the things that Dahmer put him through, but you could just see it and feel it in him, how angry he is.
Met for the first time last evening,
Yes,
and you came up from Louisiana at my request with your attorney,
right. That's
Mr.
correct.
Saeed, S-Y-E-D, Salet, S-A-L-E-T.
That's correct.
And you came up here to testify to the events, as you recall them, that occurred on the late afternoon, early evening, early morning hours of July the 22nd and the morning of July the 23rd, 1991.
That's correct.
So that you know, Mr. Edwards, your name is known to the jury because there has been testimony concerning what happened to you and at the apartment of Mr. Dahmer. Do you understand?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Where did you know Mr. Dahmer by name prior to that date?
I've seen him a couple of times before then. I didn't know his name personally.
All right. Did you ever talk to him before that date?
I was speaking to him, saying hello as he passed by. Yeah.
Just casual, friendly?
Casual, yeah,
Hellos.
Hellos, yeah.
Where was it that you saw him in the late afternoon, early morning hours of July the 22nd?
Grand Avenue Mall,
And that was in Milwaukee,
correct.
downtown on Wisconsin Avenue.
Wisconsin, correct.
Were you with somebody or were you alone?
A couple of her friends, yeah.
Okay, so the record is absolutely clear. You are not a homosexual, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So you were with a couple of your buddies, were you?
That's correct.
And what were you doing?
We was drinking beer, just talking, hanging out, you know.
About 6 o'clock at night, was this?
Yeah, about 6:15, whatever.
Did you have occasion then to see Mr. Dahmer?
Yeah, he approached us eventually and started talking to us. Yeah,
Were you three black males?
yeah. One white, two black male.
So you're friends.
Yeah, my best friend was white. Yeah,
When he came up and started talking to you, what is it that Mr. Dahmer said to you?
he said he was just in the city from Chicago. He was taking care of her sick grandmother, I believe, in West Allis. Yeah.
And did he have any further conversation with you and your friends?
Yeah, he was just talking. He said he was a professional photographer. He usually pays people for pictures and stuff like that if anybody was interested in making money at that time.
To have cuff.
Yeah, right.
Where do you have the knife? What kind of a knife was it?
It was like a military knife, a machete of some type. Yeah, he had it lowered right up under my rib cage, you know. Like
So
in
he
the
had
back, somewhere in the back here.
You had it pointed at your ribcage.
Yeah,
Did you feel it? Touch
yeah.
it?
He had it on me. He had it against my body.
What happened? What was going through your mind the moment that happened when you realized you had a knife at your side and a handcuff on your hand? What did you think?
I think like, you know, what's going on? You know, this guy is so nice, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like he's pulling knives and handcuffs and all on me. You know.
What'd you do? What'd you say to him?
I asked him what the problem was, you know, that it's not necessary to do this, you know.
What'd he say?
So I'm sorry, I was probably on mute when I tried to talk, but I went ahead and fast forward a little bit more to the middle of the actual trial. As you can see, it went from like a leisurely kind of party thing to it got real hectic, real quick in there, weapons and all. So let's go ahead and listen a little bit more. And then what we'll do is give this maybe a couple minutes, and then we'll skip to kind of the end, and so that way we kind of get the beginning, middle, and end. All right, here we go.
He told me at that point if I wouldn't do what he said, he would kill me. Yeah.
Now, tell us about his demeanor at the time that you look at him and you say, what's going on? You don't have to do this. What happens to Mr. Dahmer? What's he like?
It's like not the same person that we met at Grand Avenue Mall.
How does he different?
His face structure seemed different. You know, his body structure is like it wasn't him anymore. You know, it's like it was a totally different guy there.
So he told you if you didn't do what he told you to do, he'd hurt you.
He hurt me.
What'd you do? What happened? Tell us what happened step by step as best you can
And
remember.
then all of a sudden he kind of calms down, you know, and then he said he has a key in the bedroom. So we proceed to the bedroom.
the key to the handcuffs.
Right.
So you believed he was going to take them off?
Yeah. At that point, I had to go along with this guy, you know, and then if I had to find out, so I walked back there with him. He kind of guides me back there. You know?
Guides you back with the cuff and the knife?
Yeah. Right.
And you go into the bedroom.
Right.
What do you see in the bedroom?
A big, about 50, 60 gallon drum barrel, whatever.
Do you ever see a 50, 60 drum barrel in anybody's bedroom
No.
before?
Not at all.
Do you have any idea? Did you ask him what it was?
No. At that point, I asked no questions at that time. You know?
Was there a bed in that room?
Yes.
How was the bed? Was it made, unmade? What did
It
what
was,
op-
it was unmade.
what did you see on the bed, if anything?
Something like a stain of whatever, yeah, on the bed.
What did you think it was?
At that point in time, I wasn't sure.
What did you do when you got in the bedroom as he's holding on to the cuff and the knife? What did you do?
Studied us talking, trying to be friends with him, you know.
Did you remain standing? Did you sit down? What?
He made me sit down at that point. We both sit on the bed.
Was it at the foot of the bed?
All right, we're gonna go ahead and fast forward this a little bit along, more towards the end, and kind of get a ending of it. That way, you guys can kind of hear how it ends. Last couple minutes. All right, here we go.
Into the Milwaukee police a few hours later.
Yeah, guess you could say a few hours. Yeah.
Man, you can just see the emotion on this guy's face, having to relive this all over again. Got to be rough. And having to sit in the same room as the man. Gosh. Could you imagine?
Mr. Edwards, through your lawyer, I had you come to Wisconsin to testify.
That's correct.
Other than your expenses, you're not being paid anything,
No.
correct? Is that true?
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCann, how long do we anticipate the cross-examination of this witness will
I'd say
take?
at least half an hour, Your Honor.
Okay. That being the case, I think it's appropriate that
All right. So there you go. There you have it. It's tough to watch someone have to go up there and having to relive what they went through. But a lot of you guys didn't miss it. He ended up beating Dahmer up pretty good, was able to get out of the house and escape and able to report him, and which ultimately Tracy Edwards probably spared who knows how many other lives he had spared, and had to go through a lot. And Dahmer ends up pretty much confessing to it all. And like I said, there's a lot of interviews out there with him and stuff. And I'm going to be showing you a couple interviews here shortly. But first, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of the trial, and we're going to go ahead and talk about that. So let me go ahead and kill off this video. All right. So we're going to talk, like I said, a little bit more about his trial and how all that went down. Let's see. That's better right there. All right. So Dahmer's trial began on January 30th of 1992. He was tried in Milwaukee for the 15 counts of first-degree murder before Judge Lawrence Graham. By pleading guilty on January 13th to the charges brought against him, Dahmer had waived his rights to a trial to establish guilt. As defined in Wisconsin law, attorneys at Dahmer's trial debated whether he suffered from either a mental or personality disorder. The prosecution claimed that eating disorders did not deprive Dahmer of the ability to appreciate the criminality of his conduct or to deprive him of the ability to resist his impulses. The defense argued that Dahmer suffered from a mental disease and was driven by obsessions and impulses he was unable to control. All right. So, as you can see, he ends up fessing it up, tries to claim, that he's insane. I have a video that shows us the actual trial. So we're going to go ahead and we'll check out that right now. This is going to be the trial on whether he was sane or insane.
Jeffrey Dahmer stood trial to see if he was sane enough to go through with the trial. It was a 10-2 decision deciding that he was sane enough to go through the actual trial. The family members obviously had an adverse reaction and were very upset. One of them was super vocal.
Jeffrey, I hate you! I hate you! This is out of control! Don't I kill you! Don't kill me, mother!
Dahmer speaks
what
out.
I did to those poor families, and I understand their rightful hate. I have seen their tears, and if I could give my life right now to bring their loved ones back, I would do it. I am so very sorry.
Dahmer goes ahead and returns back to his seat, obviously has zero kind of emotion whatsoever after reading that letter.
All right. So the family, they obviously were super just emotional, and they all got the opportunity to get up and speak to Dahmer. As you can see, so much passion and so much emotion there. I don't know. It would be very hard for me to sit in a room with someone that killed my family member and have to sit there, talk to them, and listen to the whole trial. And, this guy's sitting here trying to claim that he's insane and all this stuff, but has no problem talking about what he's done in his obsession, how he fared in jail, and what ultimately happened to Dahmer. All right, so on February 15th, the court reconvened to hear the verdict. Dahmer was ruled to be sane and not suffering from a mental disorder at the time of each of the 15 murders for which he was tried. Although in each count, 2 of the 12 jurors signified their dissent. Formal sentencing was postponed until February 17th. On this date, Dahmer's attorney announced his client wished to address the court. Dahmer then approached a lectern and read from a statement prepared by himself and his defense as he faced the judge. I'm going to go ahead and play that quick video real quick. It's just a quick snippet, kind of him reading off a statement.
This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick.
Dahmer was then sentenced to life imprisonment plus 10 years upon the first 2 counts. The remaining 13 counts carried a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment plus 70 years. The death penalty was not an option for Judge Graham to consider at the penalty phase, as Wisconsin had abolished capital punishment in 1853. Upon hearing of Dahmer's sentencing, his father Lionel and stepmother Cherie requested to be allowed a 10-minute private meeting with their son before he was transferred to Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage to begin his sentence. This request was granted, and the trio exchanged hugs and well wishes before Dahmer was escorted away. 3 months after his conviction in Milwaukee, Dahmer was extradited to Ohio to be tried for the murder of his first victim, Stephen Hicks. In a court hearing lasting just 45 minutes, Dahmer again pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to a 16th term of life imprisonment on May 1st, 1992. Okay, so now, as you can see, he went ahead and just fessed up to it and actually, conducted several different kinds of interviews. And like I said, probably was one of the most vocal serial killers that we've ever experienced in our time. We're going to go ahead and now share intimate interview with him. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about his imprisonment and what led to his death. All right, here we go. So let me get it cue this up real quick. And here we go.
Myself to it. I don't know. I went to great lengths.
Evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story. His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever, Nancy Glass is here inside the world of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bill, when I sat down opposite Jeffrey Dahmer for this interview, I wondered what he would tell me, how hard it would be to get him to discuss his horrific crimes. What I found was that he was very forthcoming. He volunteered details that may be difficult to hear. I began by asking what he wanted from the men he picked up.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them.
Right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago, in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts.
All right. So, man, dude was a sick dude. And it's one of those rare occasions that we actually get to see inside the mind of a serial killer and what the reasoning was for it. So, he was very forthcoming with it and saying that he was just wanting to preserve them, keep them with them as long as they could. Maybe this was playing into him, kind of his being a loner and stuff like that. And this was his way of, I don't know, having a companion. I don't really know. It's just unbelievable. It's crazy. Now, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and listen more in on his imprisonment. So upon sentencing, Dahmer was transferred to the Columbia Correctional Institution. For the first year of his incarceration, Dahmer was placed in solitary confinement. Due to his concerns for his physical safety, should he come in contact with fellow inmates, he received ample correspondence from individuals across the world, with several individuals donating money, which he spent on items such as cassette recordings, stationery, cigarettes, and magazines. Upon Dahmer's request, after 1 year in solitary confinement, he was transferred to a less secure unit where he was assigned a 2-hour daily work detail, cleaning the toilet block. This work detail later expanded to include cleaning the prison gymnasium. All right, so when Dahmer's in jail, he's obviously scared. People have heard about him and know that he's done, so they were trying to keep him, I think, away from everybody. And when he starts to get comfortable, they put him in with general population. And I think that's pretty much, ultimately what leads to his death. So we'll go ahead and listen to what happened to Dahmer while he was serving his time. Let me fix this. All right, here we go. On the morning of November 28th, 1994, Dahmer left his cell to conduct his assigned work detail. Accompanying him were two fellow inmates, Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver. The trio were left unsupervised in the showers of the prison gym for approximately 20 minutes. At approximately 8:10 a.m., Dahmer was discovered on the floor of the bathrooms of the gym, suffering from extreme head wounds. He had been severely bludgeoned about the head and face with a 20-inch metal bar. His head had also been repeatedly struck against the wall in the assault. Although Dahmer was still alive and was rushed to a nearby hospital, He was pronounced dead 1 hour later. Anderson had been beaten with the same instrument. He died from his wounds 2 days later. Scarver, who was serving a life sentence for a murder committed in 1990, informed authorities he had first attacked Dahmer with a metal bar as Dahmer was cleaning at a staff locker room before attacking Anderson as Anderson's cleaned an inmate locker room. According to Scarver, Dahmer did not yell or make any noise as he was attacked. Immediately after attacking both men, Scarver, who was thought to be schizophrenic, returned to his cell and informed the prison guard, "God told me to do it. Jesse Anderson and Jeffrey Dahmer are dead." Scarver was adamant he had not planned the attacks in advance, although he later divulged to investigators he had concealed the 20-inch iron bar used to kill both men in his clothing shortly before the killings. Upon learning of his death, Dahmer's mother, Joyce, responded angrily to media. "Now is everybody happy? Now he's bludgeoned to death. Is that good enough for everyone?" The response of the family of Dahmer's victim was mixed. Some celebrated the news while others were saddened. Catherine Lacey, the mother of victim Oliver Lacey, remarked, "The hurt is worse now because he's not suffering like we are." The district attorney who prosecuted Dahmer cautioned against turning Scarver into a folk hero, saying that Dahmer's death was still a murder. On May 15th, 1995, Scarver was sentenced to 2 additional terms of life imprisonment for the death of Dahmer and Anderson. Okay. All right. So there you guys go. Dahmer ended up basically, his life ended the same way that he took pretty much, I think it was his first victim, Hicks, who he beat with the dumbbell and bludgeoned him to death. That's basically pretty much exactly what Dahmer got at the end of his time. Pretty much the same treatment. Mixed emotions with him dying prior to him, dying from old age and having to sit there and rot in jail and suffer. I know, it's a mixed emotion for the family members. Some of them wanted him to stay alive so that way he could suffer through his time. And others were happy that, he kind of got the same uh, death as some of their family members did. So either way, it's just a sad situation. To all the family members, to each of them out there that are, still alive, much love, much respect. God bless you guys. And we feel for all the victims. But, check on your people out there, guys. Make sure they're doing okay. Make sure their health is okay. You never know what people are going through. It doesn't hurt to reach out, say hello, talk to them, make sure they're doing okay. There's always 988 press 1 if you don't want to talk to someone, do it discreetly. There's people out there that can talk to you and help you. Don't feel like you're ever alone. You can also shoot me off an email and get in touch with me as well if you want to just have someone to talk to you. I don't mind listening and hearing you guys talk. It's a lot better than, losing someone. So please, reach out to anybody that, feel may be struggling and need some help. We'd like to thank each and every one of you guys for continuing to listen. I hope we're getting better as we go. Bear with me as we get through this because, like I said, this is kind of new to me. I am really enjoying the true crime military edition. It is a lot of fun. But like I said, love to hear from you guys. Hope you guys are having an amazing January. We're just about over with January. And if you guys haven't had a chance yet, go over and join the Facebook group. Every day is a Saturday, USMC veteran. I can't talk anymore. I'm running out of juice here. Also, you guys can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, iHeart, all the places, Gun Room Radio. Also, if you guys would like to go check out some new music by veterans who are the musicians or family members of, go check out Gun Room Radio. It is a free radio station to check out. All right. And that's going to about wrap it up for today's episode. Like I said, I hope you guys are having an amazing week, amazing month, amazing year. Keep kicking ass. Please share, like, and all that good stuff. Until next time.